Hello, everyone. Today we're in chapter 3 in your book. Make sure you have your book as we go through this lesson, Introduction to Religious Studies. So today we're in chapter 3. We're going to talk about origin stories. How did a particular religion come to be? How did it get started? All right. So today let's talk about what really is religion again. So let's go back. When we talk about origin stories, so think about the word origin or like original. Where did it come from? Where did it originate? Where did this religion begin? Who thought it up? Where did it come from? So when we think about that question, where does religion come from? Really, we honestly, in all religions, we can't, there's no real cut and dry answer. We're all the way here in 2020 and we can study it and try to figure it out, but there's no real cut and dry answer. It's not black and white. Religions exist really to simply help humans understand the world. And so if you go back thousands and thousands of years ago, hey, people didn't have the advances that we had today, and so they saw a thunderstorm, right? And it started raining or flooding, and they had to make an answer to why is it raining or why is it lightning? And maybe they thought up, maybe the gods are angry, right? And that was their answer to lightning. Okay, so basically, religion exists just to help us explain things in the world. It helps us to identify ourselves and how we operate in the world. Are we just a little minuscule person in the world, or are we somebody who has authority in the world or over the earth? Religion, where does it come from? So I have another question for you there. When we think about religion, and I have a question here. Is there a difference between what is religious and secular? And when we say religious, it could be considered sacred or holy to you. When we say secular, it could be something that is, everyday stuff and may not be as special or holy or sacred to you. And some people say yes and some people say no. Guess what? There's no right or wrong answer on that. Okay, I want you to see something on the next slide. Okay, so let's continue to talk about what is considered religious to us. So for some, let's say for example, it could be a song. Maybe somebody would not consider a hip hop or a rap song religious, or maybe they do. Or when I listen to a hymn or a gospel song, I consider that to be religious. Maybe some people consider certain places to be religious, like a church, a synagogue, a mosque. Holidays, certain holidays are religious, not all of them. For example, Easter, even though it has some pagan things to it, but Easter, Yom Kippur, we can kind of tour around with Christmas, right? Because that's kind of commercial, and then some consider it to be religious as well. There are certain events that we consider to be religious events. For example, in Christianity, someone is baptized. They receive a cleansing, a washing by the outside water, but it's a symbolism that their spirit has been made clean. Or in Islam, a Hajj, or pilgrimage to Mecca. That's an event, something they do that will be considered religious or sacred. Okay, so I want you to look at the two pictures on the right, and I apologize, I'm over top of the fun place. So up here, let's see if I can use my highlighter. So right here, what do you consider that? That's a mosque, so we consider that to be religious. What do you think about this place? I wish I could go there right now. This is like a fun water park, a resort or something. So most people would say, I don't consider this one to be religious. I consider this one to be religious because of the activities that take place. But we might want to think about that again. Maybe also down here at the resort, there are some other religious activities that could take place. Maybe simply the issue of belongingness with family. So I want you to just think about that. Is there always a definitive line between what is considered religious and secular. So when we think about religions, other religions, I want you to think about Gandhi's perspective. You ever heard of Gandhi? And I'm sure you have. Gandhi was a devout Hindu, awesome man. And even though he believed in Hindu was his religion, he also broadened his mind to study other religions. And so he read scripture from other religions, Christianity as well. And he read those scriptures not necessarily for the religion itself, but he just read them for face value, if there was any type of ethical value to them. Okay, so if it said to treat people right, he could do that, even if it wasn't in his Hindu scriptures. If it said to give to the poor, he was up for that too. Okay, so I like that perspective, and I think sometimes we have to think about that. Even though it may not be a part of our religion, there is still value to studying others and what their religion says as well. All right, so let's think about this as well. So we're in chapter 3. And if you have your book with you, there's some awesome research that happened. And there is a researcher, I want to say, by the name of Barbara King. And she did some research on what is religion and are animals religious. That's real interesting, isn't it? But what is religion to human beings first is what she found out is that there's a sense of belongingness. If you follow a particular religion, you are not the only one. We usually follow a religion that our family is in. Okay, so for me, for example, I'm a Christian. My parents raised me that way. My parents were Christian. My sister, my brother-in-law, I'm raising my family that way. When I go to church, it's a sense of belongingness because I have a family there as well. You get the point? And whatever you follow, you have a sense of belongingness with your friends or your family members that follow this religion with you. That's what religion is. We belong to something. Religion is also emotional. It does something for us. It comforts us. It gives us answers, even if it's not a full answer. It helps us through difficult times. It helps us in good times, right? It cheers us. It heals us. So religion is emotional as well. All right, and so Barbara King came up with this thing. If you go to page 30 and 31, I thought it was really interesting where she brought up the question, are animals religious? And she followed these apes, and she kind of noticed some of the things that they did, and they were empathetic, and they cared about each other. And she said, wow, can animals even be religious as well? And they had a sense of connection, family, among these animals. But they had symbolic behavior. Not sure if your pet or your animal is religious, but it's interesting that perhaps they follow some type of religious behaviors, perhaps as well. All right, so let's talk about myths. If you go to page 33, there's a good explanation about what myths are. So if you go to page 33, that's where I am. Myths are really just stories. They're stories to help us explain things. And we're going to talk about a few creation myths or origin myths as we go on in chapter 3. But in certain religions, myths can kind of get a bad name because like in Christianity, sometimes myths get a bad name because they say, oh, well, that's just what somebody thought or something like that. But I'm going to tell you, myths are in every religion, even Christianity. And when you start to study how your holy scriptures came to be, how they got into the Quran or how they got into the Bible or the Torah, there are myths behind it. And we just don't understand. Look, we're in 2020 and time just, we don't know all that happened way back years and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago and where that thought came from. people had to make some type of understanding. So a lot of myths have made their way into understanding what the world is today. Okay, so myths are stories. They help to shape what we believe. And if you get a chance, I really want you to watch this video. So we're going to talk about this video right here. I want you to watch this video when you get a chance. And this video is kind of animated, so it makes it fun. This video is about a myth, a creation myth. It's called the Babylonian Epic of Creation. It's also called the Enuma Elish. And when you watch it, I want you to watch it and watch it with an open mind. It talks about way back in ancient times, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, humans just like us were trying to figure out, how in the world did we get here? How did the water get here? And how did the skies get here? And how did the mountain get there? And the grass and the animals? And they put reason to things. And so I want you to watch that video that explains one of the oldest, if not the absolute oldest, story of creation, and it's called the Enuma Elish. And so it also introduces these gods, and we're these gods that created things, and it explains chaos and how chaos begat to peace. Okay, so I want you to watch that, and trust me, if you watch the video and take some notes, it'll help bring the Enuma Elish into more understanding for you. But Enuma Elish is one type of creation story, a myth. Okay, all right, let's go. All right, and so some other creation stories, we won't have time to get into a whole lot of them, but I want you to go to your book and make sure that you are on like page 34, 35, where we talk about different creation stories in different religions. Okay, so we talked about the Enuma Elish, and I'm going to bring another point to that a little bit later, and then the Rig Veda, and I believe this comes from Hindu, the Rig Veda, and that's a creation story. If you follow on page 35, in this creation story, it brings up the point that there was, and I'm on page 35, it says there was no realm of air, no sky beyond it. What covered in and where, and what gave shelter? Was there water? Was there depth of water? Death was not then, nor was there art immortal. No sign was there. And so in this Hindu writing, they are bringing up questions to say, where did we come from? Where did the water come from? Who designed the water? Who designed the trees? Who designed the people? What? And I think it's really interesting. If you read the rest of it, it's a song. You'll see like 7 verses of it, and it talks about creation. And in the last part, it says, he, the first origin of this creation, whether he formed it all or did not form it, whose eye controls this world in highest heaven, he verily knows it, or perhaps he knows not. And you'll find that, now this is the Rig Veda. This is Hindu, and as you start to compare creation among other religions, there are a lot of similarities. So in this Rig Veda, there is a person, there is some type of God that's in control of knowing something or creating something. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, there's another creation story I want you to look at on page 36 and 37, and it talks about this event, account of creation that happened at Sandy Lake Cree. And this place is in Ontario, Canada. But I thought it was really interesting. They go through how things came to be, and I'm not going to go through all of it, but I really want you to read it on page 37. In Sandy Lake Cree, they say that creation, if you go to the top of the page, was a female. It says the earth mother, oh ma, gave birth to the spirits of the world. And as we start to look into African religion and traditional African religion, God is not seen always as a male. So it's interesting to see here in this account that a creator is seen as female and gives birth to other people or other gods. Okay, there's something also that I want you to see it down at the bottom of page 37 in this account. If you have a Christian background, it talks to one day about this rain and flooding. And if you've ever read the Christian Bible, we see in Genesis about a great flood, a lot of rain that came. So y'all seeing some similarities there? Okay, and then let's get to the end. Let's get to Genesis, the creation stories. Now, in the Christian Bible, if you have an opportunity, what I want you to do is to go pick up a Bible, or you could always just go to your internet, right? Go and just look it up. Genesis chapter 1 and Genesis chapter 2. Did you know that there are two accounts of the creation story in the Christian Bible? They're not wrong, but there are two different accounts. And so the first one that you'll see here in Genesis 1, okay, I want you to read that one. Genesis 1, you can read it, chapter 1, verse 1, and then ending at chapter 2, verse 4. This is one account. And they say that this account was probably written by priestly, like somebody who was a priest or something. And you'll also see that God creates man and woman, and God creates the people in his own image. There's 7 days, and then God rests, and God gives dominion to the man. But then I want you to pick up from Genesis 2, go 2:4 to verse 25. There's the second account of creation. So there are two accounts of creation in the Christian Bible. And this one is a little bit different, where yet similar, but it talks more about God being more involved with the people. So I want you to read that in depth. We see God more firsthand in Genesis 2. God creating things by speaking in Genesis 1. Okay? So I want you to take a look at those things.